The house on Fairbank Road had always felt ordinary, quiet, narrow, and predictable. But the winter it turned silent from the inside was the same winter things began shifting on their own schedule. The story starts on a night when the temperature dropped suddenly, and the radiators clicked in a pattern that didn't match the boiler's cycle. A rhythmic tap, then a longer pause, then a dragging murmur moving through the piping like something crawling inside the walls. The house belonged to a 27-year-old woman living alone, and she already knew every natural noise the old property made. But this pattern was new, too clean, too intentional, almost like communication. The first night she ignored it. The second night it spread, traveling from the top floor radiators to the hallway skirting boards, then under the wooden floor of the living room, as if something underneath had mapped every inch of the structure. A week later, she found the first definite sign. The kitchen's drawer, the one with cutlery she rarely used, was pulled out just enough to be noticeable. Not wide open, just an inch, as if someone needed her to notice but didn't want her to panic yet. She pushed it back in. The next morning it was out again. On the fourth night, the noises evolved. The tapping became knocking, the dragging turned into pacing, and the pacing gained weight, literal weight, shaking the floorboards in short, firm, familiar steps. Then came the moment that proved no intruder was inside the house. The footsteps were coming from the attic. No one lived above. No one had access. No one had touched the attic door in months. But the steps continued, circling slowly like someone testing the beams to memorize which ones creaked the loudest. Every night the footsteps grew bolder, longer strides, heavier thuds, a slower rhythm like someone was deliberately adjusting their walk to sound more human. The turning point came 2 weeks later when the attic steps didn't stop at the attic. They came down, one stair at a time, soft, deliberate pressure, never rushing, never hiding, until they reached the landing just outside her bedroom door. Nothing broke, nothing opened, nothing called her name, just breathing, drawn out, deep inhaling from the other side of the door. A breath so controlled it didn't sound like a stranger hiding from discovery. It sounded like someone making sure she heard them. The next morning, she found the marks. 5 long scratches carved into the bottom of her bedroom door. No pattern, no message, just depth so deep the wood splintered. Every night afterward, whatever lived in the house mapped a new place to disturb. Sometimes the noise crawled through the ventilation gaps. Sometimes the scratching moved to the baseboards. Once it dragged something heavy across the attic floor for 40 minutes straight, slow, steady scraping like a body being pulled from one corner to the other. The final night was the longest. It started with knocking on every wall of the house in a pattern that circled the property from inside. The taps started in the living room, moved to the kitchen, climbed the staircase, paused outside her door, then returned to the attic. This time, the attic didn't stay quiet. The door to the attic creaked open by itself, and the pacing resumed, but now directly above her bedroom. Back and forth, the boards bending under a weight far heavier than any person. And then it stopped. A long silence hung over the house, until something pressed down slowly on the ceiling directly above her bed, bending the plaster inward like a hand pushing from the other side. And then the voice finally arrived. Not whispering, not calling, just breathing. Long, slow, purposeful. The sound didn't stop until sunrise. After she moved out, the property was inspected. The attic floor was covered in deep gouges, animal-like but too symmetrical. The insulation had hand-shaped impressions pressed into it, and the boards above her room were bowed downwards as though something enormous had stood there night after night, just waiting for the perfect moment to break through. The house remains empty, but neighbors still report hearing pacing inside, slow, deliberate footsteps circling the attic, learning the rooms all over again. The terraced home on Wheeldon Street had a strange history. Tenants came and went quickly, often at night, and always without taking their belongings. Some left clothes in wardrobes, some left dishes in cupboards, and one left a mattress that smelled like seawater and mold, though the house stood miles away from the coast. When a young teacher moved in, she accepted the odd stories as exaggerations, until the house began acting like someone already lived there. The first incident happened the night after she moved in. She heard cutlery clinking in the kitchen at 3 a.m. A single metallic tap, then silence. In the morning, the spoon she had left near the sink had shifted to the other side of the counter. Over the next week, the movements became organized. Every night, one item out of place. One door left ajar. One object moved exactly 3 inches. The precision made it worse. This wasn't random. This wasn't a pest. This was a routine. The turning point came when she heard breathing behind the bathroom door. Not heavy breathing, just the steady, calm inhale of someone standing perfectly still. She froze in the hallway, listening. The breathing stopped the moment she touched the doorknob. Inside, the room was empty, but the mirror was fogged from someone standing directly in front of it. And there was a handprint on the glass. Large, clear, not hers. The final week became a timeline of escalating proximity. Night 1. She heard the hallway floor dip under weight. Night 2. She heard breathing from behind her bedroom door. Night 3. She noticed the duvet slightly lifted as if something sat at the edge of the bed. Night 4. She felt air exhale against her ear as she slept. Night 5. Her wardrobe was open and every item inside was rearranged by color and size, neater than she ever kept it. Night 6. The shower turned on by itself. Water steaming, but no footprints on the floor. Night 7. She woke to find a single note under her door. It didn't have handwriting. It wasn't even written with a pen. It looked carved. 3 words. I live here. After that night, she didn't sleep. She packed quietly, kept every door locked, and avoided looking into mirrors. When she finally left at dawn, she didn't look back. The landlord later admitted something he'd never told any tenant. Every time someone moved out, the house stayed warm for days afterward, as if someone was still inside, still walking, still breathing, still choosing their room. The old flat above an abandoned shop was known for one thing. The lights never turned off. Not because the electricity was faulty, but because every occupant who tried to sleep in the dark claimed the same thing happened. A face appeared in the room with them. No body, no voice, just a face, floating in the dark, hovering inches above the floor. Most tenants left after the first encounter, but one woman who worked irregular night shifts stayed long enough to learn the truth. The first week passed quietly until the night she noticed the hallway light flickering. She stood under it, checked the wiring, even replaced the bulb. Nothing stopped the stuttering pulse. It flickered in a rhythm she couldn't ignore. 3 blinks. A pause. 2 blinks. A longer pause. Repeat. Like a warning. The second night, the flickering lights followed her room to room. Always the same sequence. Always pulsing the moment she stepped underneath. By the 4th night, the house had grown cold. Not winter cold, cellar cold. A sinking, air-drained cold that made her chest tighten, as if something was absorbing the heat rather than losing it. When she turned the bedroom light off for the first time, the temperature dropped even further. Then she saw it, a pale face, completely still, hovering low, eyes wide open, staring upwards like it had drowned long ago and floated back to the surface. She turned the light on instantly. The face disappeared. But every night afterward, the same thing happened. Whenever the lights went out, the face appeared, always at the same height, always staring up at the ceiling like it was waiting for someone else to appear above it. 2 weeks later, she began noticing the second presence. Not a face, a shadow, a tall figure that stood in the corner whenever the lights blinked off for even a fraction of a second. The figure didn't approach. It didn't gesture. It simply watched the pale face on the floor, like it was guarding it or restraining it. Then she realized something terrifying. The shadow wasn't looking at her. It was looking at the face. It didn't want the face to move, and the face seemed like it was trying to, every night inching slightly closer to her bed, just a few centimeters, but always closer. One night the face reached the foot of her bed. When she turned the lights on, she saw something new. The shadow figure was gone. For the first time, the face had no restriction, no watcher, no barrier. That was the night she fled the flat with nothing but her bag. Later, when the flat was inspected, the electricians found something disturbing. Under the bedroom floorboards, directly beneath the spot where the face always appeared, was the rotted imprint of a human head pressed deeply into the wood, as if someone had been lying face up under the floor for years. There was no body, only the imprint. The lights in room 6 still flicker in the same warning pattern. And every once in a while, someone walking past the building sees a pale shape staring down from the window. Just a floating face, watching the world from the edge of the dark.